TF, getting settled in here on the back couch, getting ready to do the regulator video. We've got another guest here with us today, and if you are not from Texas, you may not recognize this beautiful face. This is Bucky, B-U-C-E-E. Bucky is a rest stop down here, famous, man. If you ever get a chance and you see that freaking beaver on there, you stop, you go get some jerky, get your car filled up, everything will take care of, hunting supplies, corn for your deer feeder, beaver nuggets, a soda, a couple of t-shirts, peace, love, and beaver nuggets. That's what this guy's all about. So I appreciate you coming down today, Buck. We're going to take you and your overbite and put you over here. Now, we've got a marker that what we need to do is we're going to check the reg. It's not making any malfunction, but I'll show you how to do that in case it is. But again, the first thing we're going to do is degas it. So turn this over. It's real simple on the newest ASAs. You're going to want to listen for that sound and that sound. What that was air releasing from here. Then that last was the hammer pushing forward on the valve. The valve was being pushed back by air. Once it lost its air pressure, it pushed forward. That tells me the marker is not charged with air and is safe to work on. But I'm going to do one more check. I'm going to take the barrel off, and I'm going to look down that and make sure there's no paint in this marker. And there's a million ways to check this, you know. You see daylight in the front of your bolt, you know you're good. Another way, take the bolt right out, you know, so you can't fire the marker and look through it. There, I'm good to go. And that should give you a good shot of the detent too, to make sure that's in good shape. If it's chewed up or whatever, replace it. Make sure you're seeing that right. There you go. Now you can see that detent in there. It's actually an O-ring. So, breaking it down, man. Breaking it down, Jamie Brown. Take the macro line off, and you're simply doing that. You push in the collet, pull that off, set it aside. 1/8 inch Allen key will let you take the two, loosen up, and all you need to do is loosen up. You do not need to remove these. I do for the videos just to get them out of the way and show you what's going on, but you know, 1/2 turn, solid turn, and that grip frame comes right off. No worries, set it aside. Again, if you're wiping it down for the day, check the inside, wipe it down. If it's in good shape, leave it. If that needs to be polished, polish it. If that's it, done. Okay, you're not worrying about it. I'll hand take these two screws out just so that we have it sort of done. Okay. Now we need a 5/32 wrench. So I'm going to show you, how to disassemble this marker and how many wrenches it takes. That was a 1/8. We've got a 5/32 here. We're going to loosen this up. Okay. Bam-bitty bam bam bam. Done. And then we rotate this to 90 degrees and we take this out. This is actually not necessary to work on the majority of the regulator, but I wanted to break the valve down and get into the regulator quickly to show you sort of how that works. So once that's done, you push this to the back, you separate it with your 2 fingers or your thumb or however you do it, and you rotate off this back block. It comes off. The pump then all comes out the front. Do that tipped forward so you don't lose your return spring. Make sure that stays in there, and that can be set aside. So we got 2 wrenches so far. 3/16 on the front end of this. Okay. That loosens that pump guide rod up. It's got an O-ring on it, so leave it on it. There's a valve and a valve spring. We're not going into there. That was a different video, so we set that aside. And now what we have is just the regulator and the regulator housing. This front, well, I guess we're calling a front block for right now. Okay. So wipe that down if it needed it. That pin should be right there. It's set in from the factory. It's just an indexing pin to make sure it fits the front end. You'll see that corresponding hole right there, or dimple. Make sure that stays. That's a cool little thing that Chipley did. And then we take apart, we can unscrew the regulator. Okay. Reg body comes out the bottom in half. All right. And it can be set aside. Now in the top here, you have the pin. I'll show you that before we even remove it. We have this pin, a spring, and an O-ring in there. And those have to be in good condition or you will sneak air past that. So what that looks like in there is that. All right? That. This O-ring has to be in good condition and should be run dry. All right? So leave it alone. Now what you need is some way of taking this valve out. Now what you can do, you have a couple of options. If you're doing it expediently at the field, you can even grab a dime or a big flathead and you push down on this pin and use that slot and turn that out. What I like to do is to use a, when I'm at home especially, I like to use a socket so that I'm not messing with that pin, I'm not rounding anything off, I'm not making any mistakes. So we grab this socket. This is a 7/16, and it's not a deep well or anything. You just give that, put that in there, give it a little turn, and take that out. I suppose if you wanted to put one of these in there, I'd buy a cheapie and throw it in your toolkit if you wanted to. Again, it's not necessary. This is normally just when I'm working at it from home. And then there's that pin and O-ring on the pin and the spring. That's it for the top. So we're going to set that aside for right now. Okay, that's got a static O-ring on it as well. You see that brass piece. Now, everything else on the bottom just dumps out in your hand. Okay? This is what we will call a top hat, just because it kind of looks like a top hat. Not really. Top hat, made out of stainless now. They used to be made out of aluminum. That is the regulator spring. And that's what we'll call the regulator piston, but it sure doesn't look like the old school regulator piston that you're used to in the standard torpedo regs. What's the difference? In the side here, and I will try to get you to see this. I don't think you're gonna. Right about at this level, there is an O-ring. Oh, there he is. You can see it. There's an O-ring right in here. Always run your finger along there and check it. Make sure that it's in good condition. If it's not, replace it. That's where you're going to see failure. Either that O-ring or this O-ring will fail. Now, how do you know when they fail? Well, if it starts leaking out this little bitty hole here past this screw, the adjustment screw, that means this O-ring has gone bad and it's blowing by it. If it starts leaking by here, your velocity is going to spike or it's going to plummet. Why? What happens on these valve systems is this valve is sitting here like this, being open and shut by the hammer. Now, if you get a little bit more pressure, well, you can increase the pressure in the marker and increase higher pressure out the gun. If you get a lot more pressure, it locks this thing shut, and so when the hammer's hitting it, this is not the hammer, but when the hammer's hitting it, it doesn't even open it. So if you're getting nothing out the barrel and it was working yesterday, or all of a sudden your velocity is erratic, you're going to want to check this O-ring, and while you're in there, replace this O-ring. You're going to need a pick to take that out. I'm not going to do it right now, but you just take that out, run it back on there, and then when you're done, a little bit of marmalade, run that on the inside or some Dow that's smooth, and do that. Make sure the top hat's clean. That top hat, the only thing that really allows you to do is to this screw to put pressure on this spring and turn the pressure up or down. Make sure this is clean. Put it back in and put it back together, and that's what that looks like, completely reassembled. Okay. So we're going to put this back together. We drop in the pin, spring, and O-ring, like so. Make sure that's dry, basically. Make sure that's clean and nick-free. Drop it in and give it just a quarter turn, half turn, so just start it. And then use your 7/16 socket. Just snug it down. It doesn't need to be hand of Thor tight. And then use, when you're cleaning that, you can use a Q-tip. Get that all cleaned out. That's been all hogged out. Run that through, and you can see where that air passage now runs, right? Clean that all out, blow it out, and then put this back together. A little bit of marmalade on this outside O-ring. If you ever get any leaking between the body of the regulator, real rare, but it has happened to me once. If you ever get any leaking in that crevice in between there, that O-ring has gone bad. And then put it back together. It takes a little bit of tension, pushing it back together, and don't cross thread it. Be careful. I almost did cross thread it just then. And then tighten that up. Now, it does have some flats there that you can use a wrench. I find that you don't need them. It's in case it's ever stuck. Just make sure your hands are clean and dry. And if that regulator halves go back together. If you're ever having trouble, you can always take that off and tighten it back down. So that's now tight. It's in the position that it was in. And I'll do a different video on how to adjust the pressure on that later. This goes back in here. Make sure that O-ring is dropped in, and it is. If you need more questions on that, check the valve disassembly video. Okay. Well, there we go. Let's do this the long way, which is no big deal. There we go. That goes there. Keep it in vertically like this. Drop this back in. It's still got lubrication in from the video where I did that, so that's no problem there. A little bit of marmalade on there in case you need it. That tightens down, holds everything back together. Snug it up, no big deal. Then you put the pump arm back on, making sure that it's got your return spring. Hold that in tight, put your 2 fingers in between it. Use this back block, spin it till it's fairly tight. That's like that. Then back it off 90 degrees, and then put it back together here. Oops, that goes inside that hole. That goes like that. There we go. Cute. We good in that. Hold that tight as such. You want this to have no gap here. Use a 5/32. And then snug that up. You don't want any more than snug. What you've got is, again, stainless steel going into aluminum, so you don't want to just reef on it and break it. That all works. Oh, we got the bolt out. And what do you do with the bolt? Well, wipe it down. If it's dirty down, if you say chopped one or something, you know, run a swab down it. This stays in permanently. You can take that out in case it ever broke, but you know, I wouldn't worry about that for right now. And a drop of Tri-Flow to keep that bolt smooth. If you have a lot of striations on your bolt after a lot of wear, you can use like 1,000 or 2,000 grit sandpaper to clean that back up. That's being anal mostly, but I do that. That goes back in. Everything's fast there. I'm going to add a drop here, and a drop here, and I'm going to work that in. Okay. Now, once I get it sort of worked in, and I've already put some on the hammer and everything, I'm going to wipe off the excess. I don't want that to attract dirt. I do want it to add viscosity. Okay. So I'm going to put on these last 2 grip frame screws. And do that. That tightens up there, or goes on there, I should say. Again, marker's upside down like it is most of the time on the J12. These screws quickly go in, snugged up. We turn them upside down to tighten them down. Again, don't over tighten them. No point to it. You'll just strip out the body and be sad and cut yourself and listen to emo music, and who wants to do that? All right, and that goes back together. Everything seems to work. We'll put the barrel back on for fun. And then we'll gas it up and see if I made any mistakes. Now if I do, I'll edit the video, of course. Let's see. There it is. Golden. So that's it. We're going to work on the valve assembly hammer and stuff in other videos, but that's it for the regulator, a basic breakdown and put back together. There isn't a lot to do, there isn't a lot to trick out, there's just a matter of taking it apart and putting it back together. It's a pretty no maintenance guy. So good luck out there, have fun, play pump.